miracles do happen, remote or otherwise, that is the hope that the family members want me to convey.
I'm not ready to concede that he's dead yet.
Square object on the surface of the water.
We have not yet been able to recover any debris.
The search involves some of the most sophisticated equipment known to mankind. And no expense has been spared.
Yep, got it. Just going past the prompt now.
This multinational mission bringing together some of the most powerful forces on Earth. But for all their strength in the air and their prowess in the water, the men and women searching for the remains of flight MH370 have found nothing. Not a single piece of debris has been recovered to solve one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries.
Unfortunately, we didn't find anything of significance out there. We arrived first. I think there's 7 other aircraft out there that are still searching. We were focused in an area to the south that was based around the best estimates and intelligence that we have so far. The weather in the area was reasonably good. Most of the area we were able to see, 4 or 5 kilometres or more. The sea state was up, however, which meant that there were quite a few white caps in the area. So the crew would have had a bit of difficulty discerning the difference between objects in the water and the white caps. So it made it hard for the guys today.
But each sighting is potentially important. Markers dropped into the ocean will record movement, giving detail of current, direction and speed. Data that could prove crucial later.
So the objects that were potentially sighted yesterday, their position has been recorded. They've dropped drift buoys in the area to try and get an assessment of what the drift is doing for those objects, and other aircraft in the area are attempting to relocate those.
Chinese spotters saw this object today. It's undergoing analysis to determine exactly what it could or could not be.
After we flew for about 20 minutes over the search area, we found an orange object in the shape of an elbow under the right wing. 3 minutes later, we found another white strip-shaped object. We reported this information to the captain immediately.
When we detected these suspicious objects, we first tried to verify the information, and we found that they were located at the extended line. We verified by flying over them twice. We dropped a marker at each suspicious spot from a height of 300 metres, which should correspond with the object's locations according to a calculated longitude and magnitude.
And this satellite image, released on Friday, is also one of the latest recordings of what may or may not be pieces of the plane that vanished without trace 3 weeks ago. But for now, that is all we have.
Yesterday was a better day for searching. Today, I understand, is another good day for searching. The weather conditions are benign for that rather inhospitable part of the world. Yesterday, as I understand it, there were visuals from 5 aircraft of debris in the ocean. Unfortunately, despite the presence of some 6 vessels in and around the new search area, we have not yet been able to recover any debris. So that task continues. We should not underestimate the difficulty of this work. It is an extraordinarily remote location. These are inhospitable seas. It's an inaccessible place. We are trying to find small bits of wreckage in a vast ocean, and while we are throwing everything we have at it, the task goes on.
8 aircraft covered more than 252,000 square kilometres today alone. Again, more objects were seen, but again, nothing decisive.
All I can say is that I can continue only with the leads that we have. At the moment, we have 6 sightings under satellite. The vessels are going there. I believe that there have been some visual sightings of the objects today. Those, I got to wait and get reports on whether they have retrieved those objects. Miracles do happen, remote or otherwise. That is the hope that the family members want me to convey to not only to the Malaysian government, MAS, but to the world at large. And if it means our prayers, that's not a very difficult request, is it?
Chinese and Australian ships have retrieved some objects. Crucial pieces of the MH370 jigsaw puzzle, or yet more ocean junk. Perhaps another painful distraction, giving false hope to search crews and heartbroken families.
It's very, very testing for the relatives, the loved ones left behind. Normally with an air crash, we know within a day, maybe 2. In the case of Air France 446, 6 days. This is 21 days later. This is an extraordinary mystery, unprecedented in modern times. We've found debris in the ocean. It's been spotted by actually 5 aircraft after the New Zealand aircraft spotted it. Photographs were taken. They are now being processed in Canberra by AMSAR. They may be released today, possibly tomorrow, to either confirm or not that the debris they've found is from 370.
But despite days of futile searching, the resolve of the crews has not been worn down. Instead, there is real hope that a breakthrough is so very close. And instead of scaling down the operation, more resources and assets are being deployed. The Australian Navy frigate Toowoomba has joined the operation. It brings long-stay capability and boosts the current international fleet in the area to 6 ships, each one dedicated to finding that single scrap of evidence, no matter how small, that could explain what actually happened to the Boeing 777.
Depending on what they find, we have a number of ships out there with different capabilities to lift different sizes of debris, but the aim will be to recover the items back onto the ship so that they can first be verified or confirmed or denied as being part of the aircraft, but also they'll be valuable items for the subsequent accident investigation. The Pinger, as I understand it, is certified to operate up until the 7th of April. We would expect it to run a little bit longer than that. And at this stage, Ocean Shield, if she sails Monday, depending on the weather, we would expect her in the area around 2 to 3 days afterwards. But the critical phase at this juncture is to find debris, and as much of it as we can. If it is confirmed to be from the aircraft, it will enable a much greater refinement of that impact point through the modelling agencies back in AMSA, and that having a very accurate start point, or as an accurate start point as we can for the Pinger search, is actually critical.
Until yesterday, the search had focused on an area 1,500 miles, that's 2,500 kilometres off the southwest coast of Perth in Australia. But new evidence suggested that the plane may have been travelling faster than initially thought, and yesterday the search area shifted 700 miles northeast. Today, more ships and aircraft expanded the area and continued to comb the waters.
Well, as a plane takes off, it's being tracked by primary military radar, which is common practice, until it, of course, leaves the radar space. Now, we have that data, and I presume they're crunching this now with a higher precision, and they figured out that the plane has been flying slightly faster than they presumed. If you put this together with the plane being on autopilot, they could reverse engineer the flight path with the fuel which was available, and they came to the conclusion it has actually gone down, most likely further north. We know very little about military capabilities in this region, at least I'm not quite sure about this. In theory, military radar should be very precise and very reliable. What I suspect is that they maybe didn't have either the height or the speed, and they've been kind of reverse engineering this, which maybe together with the satellite data now gives a more complete picture.
The disappearance of flight MH370 is a mystery that refuses to yield answers.
Yep, got it. Just going past the prompt now.
Finding and recovering wreckage from the plane will tell us what happened. But investigators will have to go deep underwater to find out why it happened. The plane's black box has the answers. This metal case will have recorded all the details of the fateful flight and tell us why, instead of making it to Beijing, the jet ended up thousands of miles off course in the southern Indian Ocean. But the search for the black box will become much more difficult when it stops sending out a locator signal.
The beacons on the black boxes will last another 10 days approximately. After that, they will require the autonomous underwater vehicle, the Bluefin 21, to go down and survey the bottom of the ocean looking for wreckage. Where they find wreckage, they'll find the black boxes.
The black box will be a huge advantage if they find it, and then they can, if all the floating material has indeed moved 1,100 kilometres, they can then go and pick that up later.
New calculations suggest the plane was travelling faster than first thought. That means it ran out of fuel earlier. So that's shifted the search almost 700 miles northeast, closer to the Australian coast. More confusion 3 weeks into the aircraft's disappearance. The question being asked is, how can an airliner simply vanish? A report into the Air France disaster in 2009 made several key recommendations to the airline industry. Better practice, not just to prevent aviation tragedies, but guidance in how to find planes quickly following a fatal loss. But it seems Malaysian Airlines, like some others, has ignored those hard-learned lessons.
Triggered transmission of the flight data. Say there's a catastrophic incident. It's like pushing a mayday on ships. Ships have mayday buttons, literally. If you have a problem, and all you can do in 1 second is not even pick up your radio, but push a button, that sends out a signal that that ship's in trouble. You could also do the same thing either with a button or automatically with an aircraft. And then finally, deployable recorders. These cockpit voice recorders and flight data recorders are now sitting at the bottom of the ocean, 3,000, 4,000 meters deep. When the plane crashed, they separated from the aircraft and floated and then could be recovered. Sadly, you see how slow things happen, because on this Malaysian plane, none of these things have been implemented.
So while the search for answers goes on deep into the Indian Ocean, investigators continue to look for clues on land too. Early suspicion fell on the flight's captain, 53-year-old Zahari Ahmed Shah. He was an experienced pilot with more than 18,500 flying hours under his belt. They found this simulator in Captain Zahari's house. Investigators say that some data on it has been deleted. The first officer on the flight was Farid Abdul Hamid. He's 27 years old and joined Malaysia Airlines in 2007. He was fairly new to this model of aircraft, a Boeing 777-200. CCTV shows the two men going through security on their way to boarding the flight that evening. We're told they did not specifically request to fly together. It's not even known if they knew each other.
Every year an airline pilot will have at least 2 formal checks, medical checks, which obviously address not only their physical health but also their mental health. But of course, every time they are doing the job, they're being scrutinized by people. When they arrive at the airport, they will encounter security staff. They have to go through the same checks as airline passengers to get through to the aircraft. When they board the aircraft, a dispatcher will hand the plane over to them. And when they are seated next to someone else, obviously in a commercial airline, there'll be another pilot next to them, always watching them. We have to accept there is some risk in the world for all sorts of misfortune. We believe pilot suicide on a commercial flight is incredibly rare, and it is very unlikely that any more robust measures or new measures that we're not currently using would have picked out those 1 or 2 cases that have happened in the last 5-10 years.
But those who knew the captain refused to accept that he deliberately caused the plane to crash.
I know him very well. He won't do that. He's a professional. I don't think he'll do that.
Is he a family man?
Yes. He's a very loving family man.
Going through some troubles, it's been reported.
I don't think so. Because I've seen photos of the family, which was quite recent. If I'm not mistaken, middle of last year, or towards the September or so. They look like a typical happily married couple, with a good family, a grandson. He has a grandson.
Attention has also been paid to the plane's passengers. Could the flight manifest hold the answers? Investigators are scrutinising every name on it. Almost 3 weeks after the plane's disappearance, we're learning more about the men, women and children who were on board this flight. People, we were told this week, who have no chance of survival. But the girlfriend of one passenger refuses to give up hope. Philip Wood, a 50-year-old American, was returning to Beijing following a business trip. He was about to leave China for good to begin a new life with Sarah Bejak. She was at home packing boxes, waiting for him to walk through the front door when she heard the news.
Well, I'm not ready to concede that he's dead yet. So right now, it's a way to help the world understand how special he is. And that, you know, that plane might be filled with 239 people, but each one of those people has a story to tell. And they're all worth saving. And he especially is worth saving. He's a very unique man. And I think people have grown to quite care about him in this process, and they've grown to care about his parents and his siblings and his boys, who have all rallied together and maintained positive hope instead of screaming and yelling or blaming.
Sarah's Facebook tribute to Philip has now registered more than 1 million visitors, and that's in less than 2 weeks.
I'm incredibly proud of how his children have handled this and how his family has handled it. And I hope that he will be proud of what I have done to try to keep that positive process alive. I think he would do the same for me. You know, you can't just sit back and wait for someone else to do something for you. You have to be responsible for it and push it ahead.
Sarah's heartache is shared by hundreds of other families waiting for news of their loved ones. The youngest passenger is 2 years old, the oldest 76. 7 of them are children yet to reach their 5th birthdays. 26-year-old Yu Wen-Chao is originally from Mongolia. He moved to study business at Hull University in England. He went back to see his girlfriend. Mukdesh Mukherjee and his wife, Xiaomo Bei, had been on a beach holiday together in Vietnam. Their 2 young sons are waiting for them at home. Bob and Kathy Lawton are from Springfield Lakes in Australia. They have 3 daughters, and they're described as doting grandparents. Paul Weeks is a mechanical engineer. He accidentally left his wedding ring and watch behind at home as he travelled to Mongolia for work. Adrian Waterloo on the right is 17. Zhao Yan on the left is 18. They were on their way to school in Beijing.
The minister said he and the government are in the process of looking for the missing plane and that we still have reason to hope.
Us families of the passengers, we don't know whether they're alive or dead, but we're still hoping they're alive because we still haven't seen any evidence.
An unprecedented search on air and sea continues to look for traces of flight MH370. But despite all the resources being thrown at this mission, the ocean refuses to give up its secrets. for the families, no plane wreckage means a miracle is still possible. And they continue to wait, hope, and pray for their loved ones to finally come home.